Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. As we learn rather late this Erev Shabbos, the segment known as for the Shabbos table for Achrei Mois. And I will add that this shir is important to listen to whether you make it before Shabbos or after Shabbos or any time, because we're going to speak about topics that are 365 days a year applicable. Very important topics. This year is made possible by a grant from the Rubin family, whose tefillah to Hashem is that they should be zeicha to a ben zachar, and of course, amongst other things that they want, the gesund, nachas, parnasa, and everything wonderful, and may it be so. We thank them for really making this year possible, benefiting really thousands of people with this segment. In this week's parsha, we talk about, the most unique of korbanos, the Par Kohen Gadol of Yom Kippurim and the So'er LaHashem, whose blood is brought, the overwhelming majority of korbanos are brought on the Mizbeach HaChitzain, on the outside or Azara, outside Mizbeach HaChitzin, in the Azara, in the temple courtyard, and it never comes into the Kodesh, let alone the Kodesh Kedoshim. While these korbanos, their blood is offered in the Kodesh Kedoshim, Bein Abadim, between the poles of the Aron HaKodesh itself. It's done against the Paraichas, it's done on the Mizbeach HaZav, on the golden altar in the Kodesh, and its Shirayim is done on the Mizbeach HaChitzin. It's really, really incredibly unique, and normally one application of blood would suffice, even if you don't do all the sprinklings. Here, between the two korbanos, there's 43 applications, and v'imchiser achas mehem, and if you're missing even one of them, it's ma'akev. So it's extremely unique, which points to the fact that what it atones for must be so serious in the eyes of Hashem that it needs such unique kapara, such unique atonement. So it's interesting that what is the sin that these korbanos are brought for? So the Gemara tells us for tumas mikdash ukedoshav, for entering into the mikdash while being tamei, while eating the holy kachim in tumah. So if you're mechalel Shabbos, you bring a garden variety chatas, a sin offering. It's a very chashuv carbon, but it's offered outside in the Mizbeach HaChitzin. Its blood doesn't have to be brought into the Kodesh, let alone the Kodesh Kedoshim. For any serious sin, Rachmana litzlan, somebody unwittingly sleeps with a sister, they bring a chatas. But this sin of going into the mikdash while tamei, it needs such a kapara that its blood has to be put in the Holy of Holies against the paraichas, on the Mizbeach HaZav inside the Kodesh. Now, if we think about it, it's because to sin in the Beis HaMikdash, in the palace of Hashem, is more grievous. You have to be extremely careful when you're in the palace of Hashem. The Ramban says that when it comes to the sin of Stom V'Amoira, we find that it was literally a Hiroshima. The 4 of the 5 cities, Tzorah had a little bit of a postponement, but the 4 of the 5 cities of Stom V'Amoira, I heard from Reb Miller, 3 million people were nuked, were sulfurized, were wiped off the face of the map. We don't find this anywhere else. So Ramban says because Stom V'Amoira was in Eretz Yisrael, and to sin like they did, with cruelty, with promiscuity, to sin like they did in the palace of the king, that's really serious. And therefore, for Tumas Mikdash, that's a very serious crime. It needs a very great kapara. Now, we have to know that we can segue this and understand, therefore, that we have today a Mikdash Ma'at. Our Beis HaKnesses, our shuls, they are our Mikdash Ma'at. And therefore, when we're in shul, it demands from us the place that houses our Sefer Torahs. Holiest thing that we have on earth, Sefer Torah. And where people pray for their lives. It's a makam where we come with a minyan to have a special ashras hashchina. That place needs very special behavior. And if people aren't careful with their behavior, it's an extremely grievous sin. You know that it says in Siman Kuf Chav Dalet in Shulchan Aruch Arachayim, Lo yasiach sichas chulin b'shosh shliach tzibur chayze b'tfilah. You shouldn't chatter when the chazan is saying over Shemona Esrei. V'imsach, and if you speak, hu chayte, you're a sinner. V'gadol avoynai minasai, and the sin is too heavy to bear. The Mishnah Berurah brings down that from the Eliyah Rabbah, who quotes the Kolbai, that many shuls were destroyed because of this. You know, Tais Yom Tov attributes the atrocities, the Polish atrocities of Tach V'Tat during the Chmielnicki Cossack uprising, peasant uprising. He attributes it to the sin of talking in shul. The Piskei Tshuva writes that the reason why the Shulchan Aruch uses the borrowed phraseology of Cain. Cain said, when he murdered his brother, Gadol Avayim in the sight. What's the analogy? Talking in shul to murdering a brother. So he says a very scary thing. Shenerogin al yedei. Through this sin, there is killed kamabanim, many children. This sin has devastating consequences. It could be in a time of children off the derech, which to their parents sometimes is a fate worse than death. Children off the derech being mechal Shabbos, wearing tattoos and nose rings and changing their genders, all kinds of horrible things. We need to know that sinning in the palace of Hashem is a terrible crime. When we talk in shul, just like the reward is great, it says Seva, old age, is an abbreviation, an acronym for Shtike Yafa B'Shas HaTfilah. Silence is good. At the time of davening, we just had the story of Kriyas Yamsuf. It says, Hashem Yilochem Lochem, Hashem will do battle for you, but Va'atem Tacharishim. You'll be quiet in shul. Very big thing. You know, the crime is so heinous to talk in shul that there's a remarkable chidah. The chidah says in the Pesach Einayim, Demi she'einu yochel lis'apek. If someone can't contain themselves, toiv lo shelo yavo lebeis hakneses kolika. It's better not to come to shul. You can't control yourself. So you'll say, yeah, but at least I come to shul. Well, I shouldn't go to shul, then I'm a criminal. Better not to go to shul than to come to shul and talk in shul. Less is more. Now, of course, a man will not think of doing this. I mean, maybe if he has a moyach b'kad kadai, he'll say, I see it's very important not to talk in shul. I get the message. But this is important also for women to hear. Women come to shul, especially older women that don't have children at home, so they come to shul. But they sometimes, they succumb to talking. They say, look, I didn't have to come. It's all extra credit. So I'm a little social, I didn't see anybody the whole week. it's a wrong cheshbon. Certainly better not to come to shul than to use it as a social club. And you don't have to be here. But when you're in Rome, lahavdil, you have to do like the Romans. When you're in shul, you can't talk during shul. Your talking is going to disturb other people. And it's not respectful to the Makam, what is our Makam HaMikdash. Very important. In the Parsha, Rashi says, it says, Ani Hashem, and Rashi says, Neman l'shalem schorcha. I am Hashem, who is trustworthy to give your reward. So we're talking about shul. In Siman Tzadik, it says, Yishtadel Odom Lispalel Bebeis HaKnesses Im HaTzibur. A person should make every effort to daven in shul with a minyan. And that's Shachris Mincha Marv, even Mincha, which is the middle of the day. And a lot of times where it's early Mincha, it's not easy. A person has a job. But Yishtadel Odom Lispalel Bebeis HaKnesses Im HaTzibur. Now somebody might say, the Shulchan Aruch says, Yishtadel, you should try, make a try. Listen to the words of the Shulchan Aruch Harav. Shulchan Aruch Harav says, Tfilas Tzibur, davening in a minyan, Afal Pishu Mitzvah Midivreya, even though it's only a rabbinical command, G'daylahi me mitzvah sasei min HaTorah. It looms even more important than a regular mitzvah saseh of the Torah. Why? Hayil umekachin ba Hashem b'rabim. Since multiple times when you daven in minyan, you do the loftiest of mitzvahs, being mekadosh Hashem, like the pasuk says, "V'nikdashti b'seich b'nei Yisrael." So you come to a minyan, you say, "Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Hashem tzvakos." You say, Amen Yesh Mei Rabba Mevarach. You say, Baruch Hu Es Hashem HaMavarach. Baruch Hashem HaMavarach L'olam Va'ed. So multiple times you fulfill the Nikdashti B'Seich B'nei Yisrael. Shulchan Aruch Harav is obviously making a simple deduction. We know that there's certain sins that are atoned for with tshuva. There's certain sins that are atoned for with tshuva and suffering. There's certain sins that are atoned for with tshuva, suffering, and Yom Kippur. But the sin of Chilul Hashem, even tshuva, suffering, and Yom Kippur doesn't atone, only death. Now, if that's true for the sin of Chilul Hashem, it says, Meruba Mida Toiva Mebidas HaPiraniya is 500 to 1. Reward is greater than punishment, 500 to 1. So imagine the reward for Kiddush Hashem. Person comes to shul and is Mekadosh Hashem B'Rabim with a meaningful Baruch Hashem HaMavarach L'olam Va'ed, with a meaningful Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Hashem Tzvakos Malay Chalarz Kavayda Baruch Kavayda Hashem Im Kaimai Yimleich Hashem Li'olam. Therefore, he says, that's why you could be mevatel and asay min HaTorah for minyan. The Gemara tells us that if you don't have a minyan, and you could emancipate your Eved Kanani, and then he'll be a yid, and you'll have a minyan, so you can emancipate the slave, even though that you're mevatel the mitzvah saseh of la'olam bahem tavoidai. You should always enslave him. But you're allowed to be mevatel the mitzvah saseh for a minyan. That's how great it is to have a minyan. It's interesting that the Pele Yoyitz and the Shals Tshuvas Eretz Tzvi say that especially in our day, where it's very hard to have kavanah properly. And we all know how many times could we say that we daven the whole Shemoneh Esrei with kavanah from beginning to end. We definitely need the help and assistance of a minyan, because when it comes to a minyan, we know that Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu moyes b'tfilas hatzibur. The Rebbeinu Shalom never despises the tefillah of a tzibur. The Gemara tells us in Brachas that davening in a minyan is a very big siyua. It says, Pado b'shalom nafshi, redeem in peace my soul, ki barabim hoyu imadi. Because many were with me. I have the koich of the tzibur. Hein kel kabir lo yimas. Hashem never detests the mighty. There's a famous Paneach Raza. Paneach Raza says when Yaakov woke up from the dream of the ladder, so Yaakov says, it says, Vayiketz Yaakov mishnasai vayomer. Yaakov got up from his sleep and he declared. So the Paneach Raza, who's one of the Rishonim, says, look at the last letters of Vayiketz Yaakov mishnasai vayomer. Vayiketz is tzadi, Yaakov is beis, mishnasai is vav, vayomer is reish. So that spells tzibar, a minyan. And the pasuk says, Yaakov said, Achrei yesh Hashem b'makom hazeh. Hashem is always there when there's a minyan. And the pasuk continues, V'anoichi, but if I'm alone, lo yadati, I don't know. In other words, we don't know if we're zeicha to have an audience with Hashem in the way we are, in the lowly way we are for ourselves. But if we're with a minyan, then we always have an audience with Hashem. If there's a tzibur, Hashem is always there. Tzibur, by the way, stands for tzadikim beinim rishon. But it makes no difference. Hashem is there. We don't know if a person is going to be listened to. In a tzibur, it says, "La'olam ein tfilasei chayzeres reikam." A person's tefillah is never turned back empty-handed. Like the Gemara says, in the beginning of Brachas, Vanis Vilasi L'cha Hashem Eis Ratzain, says Reb Shimon ben Yochai, Eimosai Eis Ratzon. When is it an Eis Ratzon? B'shosh HaTzibur Mispal. That's always a time of favor before Hashem. The Piskei Tshuva writes that, he quotes the Bach, that says one of the signs that a person is an Adam kosher, a worthy person, is if he regularly goes to minyan. And I wanted to say that that's why the siman in Shulchan Aruch that we're quoting that talks about minyan is siman tzaddik, because that's a sign that he's a tzaddik, and that's very appropriate because we know that tzaddik is an acronym of a person that davens in a minyan. Tzaddik is comprised, the tzadi is the 90 amens, the dalit kedushas, the yud amen reish meiramas, and the kuf, the meya brachas, that a person who goes to minyan 3 times a day accomplishes. And that's why I believe, it's not a coincidence, that this siman that talks about minyan is siman tzaddik, because that's a tzaddik. And, you know, I remember my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, Reb Menachem Yorovitz, Reb Menachem ben Yitzchak, he's a Shamash Rav and Aliyah. He used to say, Pshat, me'espedoi shel odam nikir im ben olam habahu. From the eulogy of a person, you could tell if he has an olam haba. And at first glance, there's an obvious question. And that is, how can you tell from a hesped of a person if he has olam haba? People could say whatever they want about a person. So some learn that pshat is because divrei emes nikorim. So you could tell if words are true, and you could see what they're talking about if he's a ben olam haba. But my grandfather, Zech Tzadik L'Bracha S'chusa Yagin Aleinu, he said pshat is as follows: Mehespedoi shel adam, what a person mourns about himself when he's getting old. What he mourns about, you could see him ben olam haba. If when he gets old, he mourns that he can't enjoy a steak and a beer anymore, or he can't go out fishing, or he can't do 18 rounds of golf. So if that's all he's crying about, or he can't go bowling twice a week. But if a person sighs and says, when my grandfather was 100, he lived till 101, when he was in his 100th year, 101st year, he had trouble getting with his feet to go to minyan, and he was sighing that after all this time he can't go to minyan. Says if that's what a person is groaning about, you see is a ben olam haba. A minyan yid is a tzaddik. A minyan yid is a ben olam haba. It's scary that, on the other hand, if a person regularly doesn't go to minyan, so Chazal tell us that he's nikra shochein ra. He's called a bad neighbor. Now the Mishnah Berurah says, what's pshat a bad neighbor? Because a bad neighbor doesn't visit his neighbors. So if he doesn't come and visit Hashem in shul, he's a bad neighbor. We could also add that such a person is a bad neighbor that you have to distance yourself from. And then it says, V'gayrim galus lahu ubanav. He causes exile for himself and his children. Now this gives a person pause, because a person might be cavalier about himself, but does he want to harm his children? When a person doesn't go to minyan, they harm their children. The Piskei Tshuva brings down from the Likutei Mariach very, very, very frightening words, that a person that doesn't bother to go to minyan, noyach loy shaloi nivra. It would be better for such a person not to be created. Now, I'm not saying this to look down at other people. I'm saying this to look at ourselves, if this is something that needs chizuk. And the Zohar in Parshas V'yechi says that if a person doesn't go to minyan, then Hashem checks into him. We don't want Hashem. It's like the IRS. We don't want an audit. You get an idea how choshev tefillah b'tzibur is from something that the Mishnah Berurah brings down from the Radvaz. The Mishnah Berurah brings down from the Radvaz that, let's say somebody is in jail, and they agree to give him furlough 1 day a year. He can go home for 1 day. So the Radvaz says, should he choose to go home Yom Kippur? Or maybe Pesach? Or should he go the first day so he can make minyan? The Radvaz says he shouldn't wait till Yom Kippur or Pesach. He should right away grab the next day. Probably part of the cheshbon is maybe if he goes to minyan that day, maybe he'll get further furloughs. But also, it's so precious, you don't give up the first opportunity that you have to daven a minyan. In Sivchav Tes, so this is Siman Tzadi, Sivchav Tes, so I saw the Rav Zilberstein in Olein Shabbat, he doesn't say what I said about Siman Tzadi, but he says about Sivchav and Chav Tes, that Chav Tes over here represents Kol Tov, all good in the rewards. He brings down, the Chavetz Chaim brings down from a very great tzaddik, the Av Bezdin of Hamburg, Rav, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name right, Rav Miralis or Miralish, who used to always go to shul in talis and tefillin, and one time he was approached by a chashuv, a peddler, who says that he needs money quickly, and he showed him some very, very, very expensive gems, who he's willing to sell for very cheap, but he needs the money right away. So Rav Miralish said that after davening, but the man was desperate, and he went on, and he sold it to someone else, and that person made thousands and thousands of rubles on the deal. And it says that Rav Miralish was mamish overjoyed that he was able to sacrifice in order to daven in minyan. Mishnah Berurah says that for a loss, maybe you could miss minyan, but for meniyas harevach, just the loss of possible profit, you shouldn't miss minyan. And on this, the Aleinu L'Shabeach says that although he gave up on, the wealth of money, but boy was he blessed with other wealth. The Rav Miralish, the Av Bezdin of Hamburg, his son-in-law was the Chacham Tzvi, his grandson was Rabbi Yaakov Emden, together with many other tzaddikim that were his Yotzei Chalotzav. The Rebbeinu Shalom rewards greatly people that daven in minyan. You know, Rebbeinu Shalom does measure for measure. And if we regularly visit Hashem's house, then Hashem will regularly visit our house with reward and goodness. So this is something, and of course, as a parent, we're not only going to minyan for ourselves, but we're modeling behavior for our children. If they see we're Ma'aseh Nefesh, we're very tired, but we go out to daven Mariv, they see that even after a late chasana, if we didn't daven Mariv at the chasana, we go to find a late Mariv. If they see that we don't go on trips, this is a new thing. People go on getaways where there's no minyan. To plan for vacation and recreation, to not have a minyan, is not a very good example for our children. It's when we plan, just like we know, it says that the Gedolim used to say, Al pi Hashem yachanu, v'al pi Hashem yiso. You should be encamped in your homes, Al pi Hashem, and you should travel also Al pi Hashem. There isn't different rules. I remember there were some people that relaxed their tznius standards when they went away to the mountains. There's no heta for that. The Rebbeinu Shalom, Hashem ha'aretz ha'malaya. The Rebbeinu Shalom is all around. We have to have the same standards. And the idea of davening in minyan, which is always a very important thing, as the Shulchan Aruch Harav says, imagine somebody emancipated his slave to be able to have a minyan for mincha. Amazing thing. I had this chiyah for several decades to speak on Thursday night and Sunday night in the magnificent Woodridge Shul. And they say, I was told this by Rav Goodman, who was Rav there for over 55 years, such a wonderful person. Hashem should give him a lichtig 11. He's now Rabbi Emeritus. Rav Grossman is now the Rav there. Rav Goodman told me that Rav Baruch Ber gave the shul a bracha, that it should never be without a minyan. Now, we're talking about in the days, the days. Today we have more Yidden up there year round, but there were many decades where during the icy days of winter there weren't many Yidden, and he always had a minyan. And he told me that one Motzi Shabbos Slichas at midnight, when they were going to daven, they only had 9 people, and a truck driver came in and said, "Is there Slichas here?" And they had a minyan. They said Slichas, and afterwards Rabbi Goodman went out to thank him. He made the minyan, and he disappeared. Rabbi Goodman said it's possible that night that they saw Gilui Eliyahu. He had never saw this guy before. He had no idea where he came from, and he disappeared before he could even thank him. We should all be zeicha to always daven in minyan and get all of its wonderful rewards. We want to thank the Rubin family again for their kindness. If you would like to sponsor this coming week's Shir on Kedoshim, what a parsha to sponsor, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. Have a wonderful Shabbos.